Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tactical Harmony. I am your host, Rebecca Fitzsimmons, and it is my pleasure and honor to welcome Ginny Priem to our show today. She is a master certified life coach, keynote speaker, podcast host, best-selling author, and a former corporate leader who's had more than 20 years experience working in the C-suite. Ginny, welcome to the Tactical Harmony Show.
Thank you so much for having me, Rebecca. I'm delighted to be here.
Oh, this is awesome. I'm going to dive right on in. I would love to start with your book, You're My Favorite. And from what I gather, and I haven't read it yet, I've started to, but I haven't read the whole thing. It is a true story. It is about your life and about this fairy tale romance that went a little sideways and a little wrong, maybe a little unexpected. And so I would love to hear, Ginny, what compelled you to write that book when it was very, very personal and very vulnerable?
Yeah, things went just slightly sideways. I love that you want to start with the juicy stuff, which is great. Let's start with the juicy stuff, get that out of the way. So when I was working in corporate, I was living my best life. I had the corporate job. I was traveling all the time for work and then also for fun, hanging out with my friends and my dogs, and I was super happy. Loving my life. And then I was introduced to Chad, as I call him. And I was not interested for two reasons. One, because I just told you how good my life was. Why mess with a good thing? But he also had two kids. And that just wasn't a place that I wanted to go at that point. Well, he obviously broke down my walls and I fell in love and then met those kids and fell in love two more times. And as the things started to progress, it was almost like I had this instant family. They eventually moved in here to my house, part-time, right? Because they went back and forth with their mom, who is amazing. Just always like to make sure I get that in. And, I have this instant family and I find myself in places that I never thought I'd be. I'm in school pickup lines and drop off lines and packing lunches in the morning and going to sporting events during the weeknights when I'm home, popcorn nights and movie nights on the weekend. Instead of stepping on the beach in Greece, I was stepping on Legos in my house and I wasn't even mad about it. And I loved it. I was surprised at how much I loved having this, sense of family, and from the outside, it really looked like, the house, the two dogs, the two kids, the white picket fence, if you will. And it really did. I think you used the word fairy tale. That's, I think, how people really saw it from the outside. And, sometimes that happens in life, especially when you are a high performer. It looks like you've got everything together, but inside I was absolutely falling apart. And one day, I was trying to be everything to everybody. I was the one doing the laundry, the cleaning, the grocery shopping, the cooking, making sure, the house was clean, the lawn was mowed, paying the mortgage, paying the bills, traveling for work, all of the kids' responsibilities. And, on top of, doing my job and everything else. And I really did lose myself in that relationship. And one day I was coming home from a work trip and a friend wanted to urgently meet for cocktails at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday night.
Wow.
And so all day I'm like wondering what is going on? What is going on with her that is so big that she needs to get together urgently at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday? And how do I show up and be a good supportive friend? So I slide in the booth and I reach across and, touch her arm and I'm like, what is going on? I've been worried about you all day. And she said, it's not about me. It's about you. It's actually about Chad. And proceeds to display this arrangement of evidence about the man that was at home living in my house. He turned out to be a fraud in every way imaginable. I learned I was in a psychologically, emotionally, mentally, financially, emotionally abusive relationship. And when like I said, there's a lot of details in the book. It's really juicy, but I feel like I could actually do a 2.0. Like the book wasn't even ready to go to print because there was so much more I learned even after that. But what inspired me, this is the longest answer, I'm so sorry. But what inspired me to write the book is because there were some girls gossiping about my story. and not even talking about what happened accurately. And so for me, I was like, gosh, is my story that interesting that people want to talk about it? And then secondly, if people want to talk about it, maybe I should put it out there and put it out there in the accurate, true story way that it really happened and kind of set the record straight. And that was actually what inspired me to start writing the story and putting the book out there.
Wow. That is incredible. And I applaud you because it's your life. It's so personal. It's so intimate and vulnerable. And for you to like, you know what? I'm gonna set the record straight. I'm gonna put it all out there. And to be able to really serve and help so many women and so many people that could be in a similar situation, whether it is in a relationship or maybe it's some sort of abrupt ending with a career or with anything. That is absolutely wonderful. So I want to thank you for doing that because I know how much that takes.
Thank you. And, I actually did that that book came out while I was still in corporate. So
Very
that wasn't that at that point, it wasn't even on my radar for me to go, oh, maybe I can make a whole, second act career out of this at that point. So it was interesting. And I think at the time I had this sort of self-preservation mentality of like, if I can just help one person. And if you have that in your mind, get it out because nothing that we do, like, please don't limit yourself in that way. Like, please don't minimize the impact and the power that you have.
Absolutely. And I think so often, and a lot of times it's unconsciously, we put a ceiling on us, right? Like, oh, I'm just going to do this one thing or I'll do this. And we kind of minimize, and minimize and minimize. And it's not until you have that moment of reckoning, as I call it, or perhaps awakening is a better word, where you're like, well, wait a minute. What am I doing? No, let's go. Like there's so much more that we are capable of and human potential is I'm just fascinated with it. So, well, I'd love to hear since you commented on that. What was there a moment for you, Ginny, where you were like, "Wait a minute, I can make a career out of this," and make that huge pivot from corporate life to being your own business owner and entrepreneur?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a woo-woo moment. So bear with me. I one day, about 6, 8 months before the book came out, I had kind of put it on the proverbial bookshelf, right? Like I kind of took a break from it. I got discouraged from some pretty toxic people that were in my life at the time. And they're, kind of like, oh, like, in order to be an author, you have to be able to say your hair is blonde without saying your hair is blonde, right? And I was like, yeah, I understand. I have read and used words before. But it did discourage me. So I kind of put it on the bookshelf, or the proverbial bookshelf. And then I one day was just walking through my office and said to nobody except for me and my dog Francine, I was like, and it wasn't even anything I thought about. It just literally came out of my mouth. And I said, this is my last corporate job. The following week, I ended up meeting with a guide, and she told me that there was something I was working on that I kept circling back to that needed to be put out into the world in order to move my life forward. That she saw me speaking on stages all over the world. That my job was to help people heal and share their stories. And there's actually two other of my good friends in the room with me. One has unfortunately since passed, but they both looked at each other, looked at me, and said, it's the book. You need to finish the book. So that catapulted that process forward. And then a month after the book came out, my division of the company that I was working for, we laid off half of our division. And the product was a great product that we had launched. I loved working on it. So I worked in medical aesthetics for almost 2 decades. And I kind of started to see the writing on the wall. So about a month after that, I hired a business coach. I then hired a speaking coach. I got all of my coaching certifications on the side, on the evenings, on the weekend while I was still in my corporate job. And I really started building my plan based on the conversations that I was having with that business coach that I hired. We kind of built the pillars of my business and, everything kind of started from there. I started my podcast before I even exited corporate. So I kind of started planting the seeds and doing the work so that when they did eventually, about the following year, close down our division, I was prepared. I had a plan.
That's amazing. And I woo woo is welcome on the Tactical Harmony show. I'm a
Whew,
big
good.
yeah, no, I manifestation, law of attraction, like I do think that these law of vibration even more so like I'm very much into all of that and specifically where science meets or intersects with spirituality. I think it's fantastic and meditation is my jam. So woo woo is welcome or whatever word we want to use. And I think that's so wonderful. And I love that you're sharing your story and I really appreciate it because, for me, when I was an NCIS special agent for all those years and then going to corporate and what is tactical harmony? Like, you plant these seeds and you start to follow it, but it's so interesting to see how these things manifest and it's not always something that you plan. When you were a little girl, were you gonna be a best-selling author, a keynote speaker, right? Like, you don't really think of that. I didn't think of that. I didn't even know what a podcast was. Was podcasting even a thing when I was a little girl in the '80s? I don't know, but now I'm dating myself. But it's just so beautiful, and I really want our audience, to really let that sink in, marinate, bask in this, that wherever you are now doesn't have to be where you are in a year, 3 years, 5 years. If there's something that is nudging you, or if there's a passion you have, follow it because you don't know where it's going to lead you. So look at Ginny's story. She is a beautiful example of that.
Oh, thank you. And you're right. It's so interesting because I always say, imagine, if I had my unsubscribe message and I was going around telling everybody that they should leave corporate, I would never get another speaking engagement again,
Yeah.
because it's not for everybody. But even this weekend, I was with a friend and she's considering taking a promotion at work, even though she knows it would be working for a really toxic boss.
Mhm.
And she's like, I'm just really bored at work. And I think that this whole idea of linear success, right? You get a promotion, you get a raise, you work the hardest, you get another promotion, you get another raise, and you keep climbing the corporate ladder. I think that whole idea of success is outdated. Like there's new ways to identify success, right? It's that, like you said, I love that word harmony. It's finding that harmony in your life of being fulfilled, being challenged, being happy, having time freedom, whatever that looks like for you, and then backing your plan into that.
Yeah. And that's alignment. And, like you said, and as you shared with us, Jenny, you can look on paper so many things, right? You could be Instagram perfect and you can have it all put together and the white picket fence and the family. And all those things are beautiful and wonderful. But then inside, if you're feeling that discord and you're not feeling good, emotions are a compass and they're guiding you and they're letting you know what's going on. And so success without fulfillment to me is one of the biggest tragedies that anyone can experience. And so that's a sign. It's not an ending, it's not fatal. Allow that to guide you and move you into a different direction, different life where you're feeling great. And then you are going to be Instagram perfect because you're going to feel it. And you really do emit this new light and frequency and vibration when you are living your soul's purpose. I fully believe that. It's a conviction in my bones.
Absolutely. I'm with you.
Okay. So, my next question for you is as you shared, you experienced a lot of emotional abuse, dare I say, narcissism, and those kind of strong personalities, which are extremely toxic. How did it change the way that you see people or develop trust in others?
Ooh, that's a really thoughtful question, Rebecca. Thank you. And yes, definitely narcissism. I focus a lot about that on my YouTube channel. So if that's an area of interest for you to learn about, like that's definitely something I'm very passionate about, healing from narcissistic abuse, which is something I had to put a lot of energy and effort and time into. So I think the real win for me was because, as I explained to you before, I really lost myself, right? I really lost myself. And there were times in that relationship where there were red flags. My gut, my intuition was telling me something was wrong. My body was actually screaming at me that something is wrong. I had abnormal skin cancer, precancerous lesions removed. I had all my hair broke off and fell out. And at the peak of it, when I knew, and I love that you said that, like you feel that in your bones. um, I felt it in my bones, like I knew it in my soul that something was wrong, that he was cheating on me. I ended up getting shingles on my face in my 30s. And just for the record, that is not normal. shingles actually attacks your nervous system, and so it follows the nerve pathways. And where I had the primary lesion was on my eye, and my when I a friend of mine was able to get me in. Luckily, a dermatologist friend of mine right away the next morning when I messaged her about my symptoms I was having, so I was concerned about it getting worse. My face was really swelling, my eye was starting to swell, and she explained that you can actually go blind from shingles from where it was on my nerve pathway. So I felt very fortunate, but my body was screaming at me. So I think for me, the biggest lesson in trust was I had to learn to trust myself again. And when you trust yourself, then it becomes easy to know who you allow and who you don't.
Yeah. And that goes in line with what we share here, which is holistic leadership, and it starts with yourself. So that is so on brand. Self-leadership. If we can't lead ourselves, we can't lead others. We can't trust ourselves. How are we going to trust others? If we can't love ourselves, how can we extend that love to others? So that thank you for sharing that. That is so important, and I fully align with that as well. And so often it's easy to look external to us for everything, right? Like if we don't get something, it's the blame game. Well, it's the market, or it's this person, or it's my boss, or it's something external to me, rather than looking inward and okay, what can I do? What mindset shift can I make to improve? Like it's about us and changing that. And then once we change us, then our life changes, our business changes. Because I believe business is an extension of ourselves.
Absolutely. And I think that, in my new book in Unsubscribe, I actually share one of my biggest leadership lessons didn't come from corporate. It came from being a bonus mom to those two kids. And it was a moment that am not proud of. But it translates to leadership because if you think about you have a bad leader. Is it okay to swear on your podcast?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, it's like the whole concept of shit rolls downhill, right? So you have a bad leader that leads a bad way, but until you learn to trust yourself, and even if it doesn't feel right, then sometimes you just kind of do what you're told as the next leader in line. But until you start to get, like you said, in alignment with yourself and really start to trust yourself to know, oh, this isn't right. I need to push back here, or I need to question this, or ask some questions, get some clarification because that's not the way I want to lead. But until we know better and see it in the right light, we can't make those decisions. So it really does all translate across the different areas of our lives.
100%. I could not agree more. And y'all, for listening, replay that clip because that is so important. And it really is this, I'll call it a force in life that once you really understand it, that's not enough. You have to integrate and you have to activate it and live it because knowledge is potential power. The action, the movement, the execution of that, living it, aligning with it is where the magic comes from. So 100%.
Yeah, one of my really good speaker friends always says thinking about doing something and doing something are not the same thing, So I like
Amen.
that. And it's so true. Sometimes we're like, "Oh yeah, I'll think about that," and because you're thinking about doing it, right? Like it's taking up your energy and your brain space and your bandwidth, but you actually have to take the action to do it.
Yeah. And I think we're all guilty of that. I know I am, where I'm thinking about a lot of things, but I'm not moving on it. And it's until I hold myself accountable and take ownership of it. When is the right time? Yesterday. When's the next best time? Today. There's never going to be the perfect moment, and we make things so conditional in life. I'll do something when I have so much money, or I'll do it when I hit a certain age, or when I am a certain weight, or whatever it is. And we make things so conditional. And sometimes that doesn't happen for us. And so the best moment is now. That's all we are guaranteed. And that's not corny, cheesy talk. Like right now is the moment that we have. Everything in the past is just living in our head. The future, it's not guaranteed. It's right now. So if you have something that you want to do it now. And then when you build confidence, you'll get momentum and then you reap what you sow. Oh, so good. Okay. Shifting gears a bit for you, Jenny. Setting boundaries. I know this is a topic that is very passionate for you. I would love to hear in your work with high achievers, high performers, the go-getters out there, what is what is a struggle or like a blocker for them setting boundaries?
Oh, it is such a struggle for so many people. I think people view boundaries as really scary and the potential of pushing people away or, like blocking people out. But that's not what boundaries are at all. Boundaries are actually designed to keep people in, right? But just show them where the door is. They're not walls. It's actually a door. And when you start implementing boundaries, the people that are meant for you are going to only respect you more for it. But I think that a lot of high achievers have some tendencies like perfectionism and people pleasing, right? We don't want to disappoint people and we want to, be a high achiever, be a high performer. And so we tend to take on more than our share. At a keynote this weekend, I couldn't believe how much this resonated. So it was actually the number one thing in the feedback. I said, I'm going to teach you a 3-phrase sentence that is a boundary that's going to change your life. And they all were like, okay, tell us. I'm not available. I think as high achievers, we tend to over explain or need to tell people exactly why we're not available, what we might be doing, oh, well, maybe, right. And this was in the Midwest. And so we talked, we kind of joke like, well, maybe I might be able to do it if I'm just not really sure. Right. And I'm like, it is the most Midwestern thing for us to tend to over explain and want to accommodate everybody. And the feedback, people were just like, I'm going to use, I'm not available. As simple as that. You don't always have to be available for everything, and you don't always have to over explain it. It can be really simple. I know sometimes we hear it's, like I don't love cliches, right? Because people are like, no is a complete sentence. And that's fine. That is, but like I'm not available is just a different way of saying that. And then you can kind of manage that conversation. If it is something that you want to do, that you want to help out with, but you truly can't do it, you feel overwhelmed, or for whatever reason, you just don't want to do it at that time, you can always offer a different time, a different way to help support. Um, and, I think it's removing and letting go of that guilt that comes with saying no to things.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you like a follow-up question about like the guilt because I think a lot of people pleasers, high performers, they overextend because they want to be everything to everyone all the time. But once you realize and integrate that your yeses and your nos are intertwined, what I say no to, I say yes to something else, yes and no, then you start to kind of examine and audit your life and what you do in a day very, very differently. So guilt is something that it's self-imposed. We do it to ourselves. So once we're like, okay, I'm feeling guilty for no reason, no one's making me feel this way. I am making me feel this way. So to kind of restructure the wording, there's such a certainty with what you said. I'm not available. I really love that. And I hope that anyone that is like, oh man, I'm overextending myself, I'm not available. So thank you for sharing that from your keynote, Ginny. I think that's wonderful. And that kind of leads me to my next question for you so beautifully is that you talk a lot about reframing the word no as clarity instead of conflict. So what mindset shift can people start to embody in order to make this true for them?
Well, I'm going to take it from our dear friend Brene Brown. I don't know if you're a Brene fan, but she really helped me make that shift. And sometimes people think saying no, it sounds harsh, or, again, they struggle with that guilt. But if I'm going to give actually a different example and then circle back to, or a different example and then circle back to answer your question. So I use the example of so often high performers have a really hard time saying 3 words. Not, I love you, but I need help. And I often ask people to examine a time or remember a time where they had the opportunity to help somebody that they care about in a time of need, and how fulfilling and how much joy that brings. And so if you shift your mindset to, oh my gosh, when I need help, I might actually be able to extend somebody that cares about me that same kind of joy and fulfillment for the opportunity to help me. But hyperindependence is a coping mechanism. It's like the meme where there's this little bit older lady, and she's got a couch on a wheeling office chair, and she's pushing it up a hill, like San Francisco size hill. And it's like, no, I don't need help, right? But we get the opportunity to help people and remember how good that feels. So it's very similar when you shift your mindset to starting to say no, that being clear is actually kind. So you get the opportunity to provide that clarity, right? Like I feel like there's no worse place to be than in limbo. Because then that's when your mind, our brains automatically want to create stories. They want to close the loop. And so your brain wants to close the loop. So it's automatically going to make up stories in your mind when you're in that place of limbo or uncertainty and having that lack of clarity. Saying no or having a boundary provides clarity. And that really is kind and helpful to other people around you.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And giving is receiving. Like having that, like giving to others, it's such an amazing state of receivership, and we also receive what we give in life, right? Like Florence Scovel Shinn is famous for saying that life is a game of boomerangs, and what we give, what we put out, comes back to us with astounding accuracy. So when we kind of examine it through that lens, okay, I'm going to start giving. I'm going to be a little bit different in how, that I operate. So, yeah, and I also think clear is kind, kind is clear. And so you can be direct, you can be professional, respectful, and you don't have to do it in a demeaning, condescending, or mean, cruel way, but you are just speaking and expressing your truth. Kind is clear, clear is kind. So that is wonderful. And so you mentioned your book, Unsubscribe. Why letting go is the secret to getting ahead. And I absolutely love this, and I wanna talk to you about it for a few minutes because I often share with people that when we're looking to grow and progress in life, I think there's this general theme that we need to add something. Well, I need to add something to my life. I need to do this new thing. And that is true in so many different ways. But there's also this element of subtraction. What do I need to cut, remove from my life? Is it a toxic, soul sucking relationship? Is it a soul sucking job? Is it something that you're not happy with, or you're busy doing something, but it's not moving the proverbial ball down the field, right? Examining your habits, which is our life force, it's the building blocks of our day. So, can you talk to us about what inspired you, or the premise of your book, Unsubscribe? Which, P.S., love the title.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, really, I call it your filter to reclaim time, energy, and boundaries at work and in life. And man, I developed this because did I ever need this when I was at the peak of my overfunctioning? Right? Like, I wish I had this, a simple language filter. And what I like about it is it's really simple. It's not easy, but it's simple to understand. We all understand the word of unsubscribe, right? It means to remove, let go. But not everything. What I want to be clear about is that it's not about flippantly walking away from things and just letting everything go or just burning everything to the ground, right? It is designed to be actionable and for you to have accountability around the steps. So I made it a little bit workbooky style. So at the end of each chapter, there are, it's your turn to apply a few prompts to really help you put it into action for yourself. But it's built on 4 pillars: block, mute, swap, and manage. I'm happy to go through examples in each one if you think that would be helpful. But block is for completely removing. Mute is for taking a break or, temporary stepping away from something. Swap is exchanging for something that's more productive, like swap out outdated systems, thoughts, beliefs, etc. And then manage is for the things that do need to stay, but maybe we need to manage our relationship with it. And unsubscribe is also not about trying to control anybody else. It's really a tool for you. But when you start using it, it creates this common language. So you can use it at work with your team. You can use it at home with your family and your friend group. And it's crazy how quickly and how catchy it is for people to really start implementing it.
Yeah, and it's a culture shift. So once you make it a part of your culture, like in the corporate world, there's so many companies that have, "Hey, these are our values. This is where we're going to live," and it becomes a part of your daily talk. Like, "Hey, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z in alignment with whatever the value is for that company." So to be able to apply it not only in a work setting, but with your family. Like, "Hey, I'm gonna mute son, daughter, mommy needs a bath," or whatever. Like, you can make it fun, which kind of like rewires a different connection in your brain, neurons that fire together, wire together. So that is really cool. Thank you so much for sharing. And again, I love the name Unsubscribe. I love the podcast Unsubscribe. Like, I think it's wonderful. And for those that are listening to us, she has the word unsubscribe on the back of in her background, so maybe pop into our YouTube channel and take a look because it's wonderful and I love it. So, how does so kind of segueing, there's another methodology that you created that I was pretty fascinated with, and it's called the Gin Path, I believe. So, a play on words with your name and how to help people grow through adversity. Can you highlight what that looks like for us?
So that is actually, and thank you. I haven't gotten to talk about Gin Path in a little while. So Gin Path is really the steps that I took when I went through my experience. So the first step is accountability. So I always like to give sort of that preface before we can get to Gin Path, right? Or I'm sorry. Did I say accountability? I meant acknowledgement. So different A word. So acknowledging what you went through, acknowledging the experience, because a lot of times people like to minimize and they like to shove it down, pretend it didn't happen. And, just think if we brush it under the rug, right, right. Like I grew up in a household where things were just brushed under the rug, not talked about, not acknowledged, and you just move on. But eventually it's like wearing Spanx, right? Eventually when you take those Spanx off, everything's going to need to, kind of come out. So then the first component, and this is actually in my guided journal, I'm my favorite. So You're My Favorite is my first book, The Juicy Story. You're My Favorite is the first book, Juicy Story. I'm My Favorite is the guided journal, and then Unsubscribe is the newest book. But I'm My Favorite has all of the steps. So G for gathering, you've got to kind of gather the information, figure out how you got to the place that you're in right now. And then the second component is being intentional, really being intentional about that next step forward, about who you're surrounding yourself with, about what you're doing. And then the N stands for nurture. So
Mm.
that really means like kind of coming back to yourself and taking those steps. Like you said, mom needs a bath, right? And so imagine if it's just like, all right, mom's going to take a 30-minute mute. Instead of like it kind of, or it's almost like renaming a timeout, right? But it just creates it in a little bit more of a fun way. So nurture is really about that, taking care of yourself, doing things that are more mindful. In there, I actually have a version of the emotional vibration chart, which you talked about, like vibration, moving away from guilt, shame, some of those emotions to more high vibrating emotions like joy, love, enlightenment, peace, etc. So that's really kind of the premise of Gin Path. It was kind of retracing my own steps that helped me not just um bounce back, but actually bounce forward, catapult forward to a new, better place.
That's wonderful. And I love that you have the emotions, and I know exactly what chart you are referring to, because so many people out there unconsciously, a lot of the times, and I want to always make sure that I state that because we need to have grace for ourselves, is they exist in the shame, the guilt, the frustration, the anger, which those are low frequency emotions. And then when you get to gratitude, that's usually the gateway that starts in our heart, which is our fourth center, to be able to open up, right? And to receive and to give to others. And then it goes all the way up, as Ginny was explaining. And we attract. There is electromagnetic energy around us. This is measured. This is not woo woo. I promise. Look it up. And what we vibrate, we're going to attract, right? Like if you go into a guitar shop and you play the D string, guess what's going to vibrate on all the other guitars? The D string. So again, this is science and I completely nerd out when I talk about it, but this is important stuff because once you realize that and you apply it to your vessel, to your being, to your carriage, whatever you want to call it, you will start to experience life in a very, very different way. So, Ginny, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and when you think about it, your thoughts create your
Mhm.
feelings shape your mood, and your mood becomes your reality. This is something that we have more control over than we like to give ourselves credit for. And if you think about a day, your coat pocket never gets stuck on a door handle when you're in a good mood. It's always when you're already in a bad mood, right? And so like you said, when you start to attract that mood and that reality based on how you choose to feel about your thoughts.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
powerful.
it is so powerful. I mean, there are so many examples. And, you know, if you're, let's say you're stuck in traffic and, maybe someone's usually prone to road rage. You're not going to think about, oh gosh, what if someone were in an accident? I hope they're okay. You know what? If I'm 10 minutes late, at least I'm safe and I have my health and my well-being. But to someone who's angry and frustrated, they're going to be like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to go through the local Starbucks to get my Frappuccino and I'm going to be late to work. And then my boss is going to be pissed off. And then you start to think of everything that's going wrong rather than, you know what? There's a lot of things that are going right. And I'm going to choose to look at my blessings and what's going right. And again, it's not about positive thinking all the time because I don't believe in that, but it's a how you reset and it's your response to things. I'm not going to live in frustration. I'm not going to live in anger, shame, and guilt. I'll feel some emotions, but I'm not going to live in that space because I choose a different way to live. So the word powerful probably isn't even an understatement. I don't know what's more powerful than powerful. I don't know, but like use that word, whatever resonates with you, where you're like, yes, like this is it. And it gets you animated and amped up. Use that word. Okay, Jenny, I would love to hear, what do you do for you? So you are a keynote speaker, you're an author, you're a podcast host, you coach others. There's a lot on your plate. You're a mama. So what do you do, whether it's a habit, a practice that keeps you operating at peak performance?
Oh my gosh, how much time do we have?
How much time you got?
So a few things. One big swap that I made. So when I was surrounded by narcissists and toxic people, there's a very high value placed on things, material things, right? And it's easy to get caught up in that. And so look, I do like nice things, and I'm not going to sugarcoat that. However, I value them significantly less than I used to. And one big swap that I have made is experiences for things. So I love to travel. I love to see new places, experience new cultures, see new people, and just different ways of life. I find so much value in that. So I love to travel. I will hit 2 million miles with Delta Airlines, I think, by the end of this year. So just to give you a perspective on how much I travel, I mean, that's been a lot, many, many years of work travel, but also, I've been fortunate to see some pretty cool places for fun. I have my soul dog, Francine, who is amazing. And I talk about the story of how she came into my life in the first book, and You're My Favorite. It's kind of special. I say we saved each other. It was during that time period of Chad. So I feel like we saved each other. That's really special. I, like you, love meditation. It really changed my life. It changed um the entire way I show up, really. Um, Being more present, being way more calm, much more patient, really helped me get to know myself in a much better way. Look, I do love to work out. I have I mean, I think sometimes a love-hate relationship with it, but like I love to work out, spend time with friends. I love to travel. I love to read. Another big swap I made during the pandemic was I stopped watching the news in the morning. I think about 4 days in, I was like, yep, I've had enough of this. It's not making me feel good. So instead I swapped for reading books in the morning. So love to read, love to stay caught up. So I feel like a lot. I do. One of the stories that I tell, people are like, well, what did you do next after you got all this evidence about Chad? Like, yeah, I was like, well, I went home and I confronted him. He got up and left with the kids really early the next morning. And then I went and got my nails done. And people are like, "What?" I actually had someone write a really mean review of like, "What a vain person. I can't believe she went and got her nails done." And look, I talk about this because it most people laugh, right? They're like, "Oh my gosh." But it wasn't a conscious decision. It was just the next thing on my calendar because I was in such a state of trauma and duress that I didn't even know what to do. I was just a zombie. All I could do is just like look at my schedule and do the next thing. And it happened to be a nail appointment. And in hindsight, that was probably one of the best things I could do in that moment when I'm in this state of trauma, shock, duress, to have someone hold my hands across the table from me for 45 minutes.
Mhm.
Like in hindsight. And then I went and got my tires changed and, just did the next thing because that was the next thing on the calendar. But that is kind of one of the things. I noticed you have really cool nails also, but like getting my nails done is one of my non-negotiables. Like every 4 weeks I have a standing appointment and it's one of the things that I do for myself. And it's kind of like one of my little signature things too. But so a lot. I mean, I really do think that I do a pretty good job of taking time. And I'm a total nerd. Like I love to watch Wheel of Fortune. I like doing puzzles. I like going to bingo. I say I was born like the littlest old lady possible. So yeah, I mean that's probably again more than you asked for, more than you bargained for anyway.
No, we are kindred spirits because my I have been bit by the wanderlust bug, and I love traveling. There's no better thing, and meditation and working out, and and I loved how you called out many things, not just one thing, because for everyone that's listening, there's so many modalities, vehicles, ways that you can give back to yourself and nurture yourself. For some, it could be going out in nature and hiking, which is one of my things. Meditating outside, life hack, by the way. Like, I love it. Biohacking, forest bathing with meditation and your bare feet are on the earth. So you're grounding. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I will nerd out with that as well. But as Ginny explained, there's so many different things that she does for herself that keeps her, she's putting gas in her tank. Because if we think about our bodies like, hey, we're a car, you're going to run out of gas eventually. So you have to gas up, right? And you don't want to wait. I know some of us live on the edge where it's like and then you're like, oh shit, how long do I have till I get to the gas station? And then you kind of flirt with danger. I've been known to do that. But when you look at the analogy for our bodies and ourselves, like, hey, especially high performers, and I have been so guilty of this, giving to everything else and everybody and not myself. But when I take the time, like Ginny says, hey, it's on my calendar. Every 4 weeks, I'm going to do this. And for others, it might be a massage or whatever it is, you're going to feel better and then you're going to have more capacity to give, more capacity to serve in whatever capacity, whether it's in your community, with your friends, your loved ones, your work. And it really is this, I don't know, realization that, like, oh, why did I waste all that time when I feel so good and I'm able to actually do more and have clarity? So I'm not just busy for being busy, right? So that's wonderful. And you are welcome to visit me in Montana. If you have not, I'm in Montana. So let this be the invitation for you.
Thank you. I've been through Montana, but I would like to spend some more time there. So, yeah, that would be great. And I think too, it's like not having this black and white all or nothing mentality about things. Like if you don't have 60 minutes to work out, can you do 10? Or
Okay.
like meditation doesn't have to be this big to do. You can literally sit and do it for 5 minutes. And just, so you can do little bits and pieces. None of these things have to be like a big production.
Mm-mm. Yeah, and I love that you said that. It's we overcomplicate things, so start small. Like if you work out for 15 minutes, that's better than 0. If you do 5 push-ups, that's better than not trying at all. And then in time, you'll be able to carve out what you need. You'll get to do more. So that's a really, really, really important call out because as you said, I went and got my nails done because it was the next thing. And then I went to change my tires because it was the next thing. Focus on the step in front of you, not the whole marathon, the 26.2. How about mile 1? How about step 1? And when you do that, your brain, it's almost a liberation of energy. You feel good. And then you're just focusing on that first thing. And then the second, the third, the fourth. So that's wonderful. My very last question for you before we part ways, ma'am, is if somebody doesn't hear anything else but this one clip, what takeaway or message would you like to leave our audience as it pertains to either leadership mindset or performance?
Mm. I always love this because it gives me an opportunity to bring in my dad. So, my dad was my guy, and he passed away 5 years ago. And he had all these things that I like to call dadisms, not to be confused with a dad joke because they're not funny, but they're both poorly timed and well intended. So, his most famous one was, "You are the architect of your own destiny." And it was just so annoying because we all were like, what does that even mean? Like, what is he trying to get? But since he passed, at his funeral and in the eulogy, I gave a whole laundry list of his dadisms. Some of them are actually really funny and cute. But that one resonated the most. It's the one that, us kids would, repeat the most, like, oh, you are the architect of your own destiny. But now I actually use it as motivation and as sort of a life lesson to think about we can't always control what happens, but we can control how we respond. And I feel like that's such a applicable thing that really comes up pretty much every single day. And you talked about that earlier, right? Like sometimes we react to things, but if we observe that reaction and choose how to respond, it really kind of changes the course of things. So you are the architect of your own destiny.
That's beautiful. And what a wonderful way to kind of wrap up all the many wonderful things that we talked about, because you are the creator of your life. You truly are. And that was actually my own spiritual awakening. When you hear something over and over again, and then finally you're like, oh, I create. I am the creator. If I don't like something, I can simply, it's that easy and that's hard. Change it. I can change it. So thank you, Jenny. And where can people find you? I know you have books and you have a lot of things that you can offer. Where are a few links that we can find you?
Yeah, so I'm very simple. I like that you use the word simple. I got to keep things easy for myself. So everything is just my name, Ginny Priem, GINNYPRIEM. That's my website. That's what I am on Instagram. That's my YouTube channel. My books are all on Amazon. And you can find them all through my website and through my socials as well.
Wonderful. Well, Ginny, a heartfelt thank you. This was such a spirited, meaningful conversation, and I am so excited to share this with the world. So I appreciate you and all of your time today.
Thank you for having me.